Welcome to Feel the Heat, a 5 Reasons Sports Network Miami Heat podcast. Hosted by Allana Tachauer and Michael Christian. This is your one-stop listen for all things Miami Heat culture, past, present, and future, on and off the court.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 4 of Feel the Heat. Michael, how are you feeling about our new intro? Because I'm thinking it's pretty snazzy.
It's exciting. I feel really official now. It feels like we're a real thing. Before that, all we had was your "What's up, y'all?" And I don't think that really got people excited.
People are excited. You still have my "What's up, y'all?"
I didn't want that to be the first thing people heard. I wanted them to hear something else. Maybe a voice with a bit of energy. Someone who's actually happy to be here. And so the guy that recorded our intro.
I'm very happy to be here. I bet you this is what Kourtney Kardashian feels like every day of her life with her monotone voice.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I know, but some of our listeners might.
I would say maybe 4 people.
You know what? If you know what I'm talking about, tweet me. I want to run a little experiment here. I think Michael's just in the dark.
I'm not going to say if you get more than X amount of tweets, I'll do blah, blah, blah. Because I know there's going to be a bunch of random people who tweet it out just to be like, hey, we got Michael. But no, they don't know. They're going to have to do a lot of research.
They'll know. We're going to get at least 8 people telling me they know what I'm talking about.
You say 8?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is she the oldest one?
That would be correct.
Great way to start the Heat pod, by the way. I want you to know you did this.
Of course I did it.
Kardashians have dated a lot of basketball players. There's our transition, and away we go.
Take us away. Go ahead.
All right. What a week it's been. So we last recorded with Greg last Monday night. That pod came out Tuesday morning. Fantastic pod. If you haven't listened to it, make sure to do that. They immediately played the Mavericks, and all of our hopes and dreams were shattered into a bazillion pieces by Luka Doncic and the son of a former Heat legend. That was followed up by a game against the Timberwolves that the Heat won. Not a crazy margin, but also a lot of the stars were able to sit down in the fourth, which was nice. And then they had that big game against the Celtics in Boston, 1:00 game. Hate those start times, really do.
You know who hated them? Mothers across the world. Having that on Mother's Day was painful.
Who won out for you, your mother or the Heat?
Can I plead the fifth on this one?
Wow. There's one thing being devoted to the team, and I love this team. There's another thing about being devoted to the person that carried you for 9 months, Allana.
Listen, Alessandra knows how it goes. And actually, I fully said that I would go and spend the whole day with her, but she put herself second, as she always does, because she's the wonderful mother she is. So I got to watch the Heat game and I went to her house for dinner. So I got in some mother-daughter time, but I know she's not the only mom that was a little salty.
I just want to make sure you're on a first name basis with your mother.
No, I just call my parents by their first name to other people.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess.
Plus, I happen to really like her name. I think Alessandra is really pretty, so I like to flex it as much as possible.
That makes sense. I think whenever I'm talking about my parents, I just go my mom or dad. Maybe
That's
eventually
fair.
I'll
But Alan and Alessandra at this point are like household names, so everyone knows who they are, as they should.
It's just so weird to me hearing you talk about your parents like that.
Get used to it.
Yeah. So, okay. I guess we'll have a lot more parent talk on future pods, according to Allana. You heard it here first. But they lost the first game, won the next 2. I mean, a decent ending to that 3-game stretch. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely stuff to still be desired from this team. I will be honest, I had a panic moment in the third quarter against the Celtics where I just couldn't believe what was happening, and I was convinced we were going to lose the game. But I'm going to repeat myself. A win is a win. And as long as we keep winning, I have no gripes. The first loss against the Mavs, we all kind of saw coming. I got to watch Jay Rich play basketball, so it wasn't all bad. But, I mean, the question now is what happens moving forward?
So, I mean, that's the thing kind of we both expected the Mavs loss. We talked about it with Greg. I think even Greg was expecting it. Mm-hmm. It was just one of those that felt like a scheduled thing. There was just no way around it, really. And Jimmy didn't even play that game. So it's just like, what are you going to do? You would like it to not have been because, Tim Hardaway goes absolutely nuclear. But then they beat the Timberwolves as they should. And then that Celtics game, I agree with you, that second half was tough to sit through. Mm-hmm. I have no idea why they let it get to that point. But at the same time, the win probably felt so in hand for them that they just kind of let off the gas and were like, hey, let's save some energy for the next game against the Celtics. These are important games, though, and this is one where I will concede and agree with you and say a win is a win. This was so important for seeding. This was incredibly important when it comes to avoiding the play-in. I think their shots moved up to about an 89% chance to miss the play-in, according to some ESPN thing that was going around.
I saw today that if we get the next game against the Celtics, then we are officially out of the play-in. So,
which was the other thing.
Really
so if they win that next game, they're officially out of it. We actually had Clutch Corner last Thursday, and I'm going to toot my own horn on this one. We said over the next 3 games, they play the Wolves and the Celtics twice. What did we think their record was going to be? And everyone except for me said 2-1. Mm-hmm. I rode that hope train straight through to 3-0. Right? And everyone's going to say, oh, but Jaylen Brown is out, so that's why it's happening. I don't care why it's happening. I am right, and I am sticking with it so far. If they lose tomorrow, everybody forget I said this. I do think they have a really good chance to win that next game against the Celtics. At this point, I'm kind of expecting it to be a win because Jaylen is out. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that at this point, all of Heat Twitter is gunning for this win, and it should be a win. The only problem I have is to your earlier point about kind of taking the foot off the gas. I hope they don't go into this kind of expecting the win and not doing what they need to do.
And that's the thing. It's one of those things. That's what worries us about this team so much. It's when the opponent isn't this high caliber quality opponent, they seem to be a different team. Lately, that hasn't been the case as much as they have been building out some really early leads when they should. But before that, it was tough to sit through. We do want to transition now into Culture Player of the Week. And even before we get to Culture Player of the Week, I want to ask you honorable mentions.
For Culture Player of the Week?
No, for who else you would have done this pod with. Of course, that's for Culture Player of the Week.
No one but you, Michael.
Oh, got it. I wasn't going for that, but cool. I'll take it.
I have to say probably Jimmy if I had a runner-up to mine. Michael's going to roll his eyes, but there's no way that I wasn't going to say Jimmy. Jimmy has been a man on a mission. He's been our saving grace. And even when shots aren't falling, even when he's not necessarily being aggressive offensively, his defense has been killing it lately. So you can't really expect that I was going to say anyone else.
No, and I agree with you. Jimmy's been playing fantastic. But the point of Culture Player of the Week is to highlight those players that are doing the little things, that are doing everything else. Which is why
he's not my actual choice. You said honorable mention. That is my number 2 for the week.
My honorable mention is my boy. And I am a big fan of this guy. I was even when he was struggling. He was Culture Player of the Week last week, and that is why he is my honorable mention. But it has to be Duncan Robinson and that defense he had yesterday on Jason Tatum. That was hilarious. And I will say hilarious because I feel like internally, Jason Tatum kept thinking to himself, how am I not getting around this guy? What is wrong with me right now? Because if he wasn't thinking that, then he wasn't thinking anything at all. Duncan was playing pretty well. Is his defense elite? No, he's not anywhere near the top 6 or 7 players on this team, but he's getting better at it and it's serviceable. And he wasn't getting any fouls, which is a really big thing for him. So I got to go with Duncan. He was able to play well offensively. He had 22 points and he played well defensively. I mean, I don't think you could ever expect a better performance from Duncan Robinson. With that being said, who is your actual Culture Player of the Week?
I just want to take a moment and tell our listeners that the only reason Michael brought up an honorable mention is so that he could say Duncan. First, because he already said Duncan last week, so he couldn't say him again. But second, to rub in the fact that I once upon a time called Duncan one-dimensional. So he needed to rub in the fact that I was wrong, which I will proudly and openly admit to. Am I incorrect, Michael?
I literally forgot to bring that up. I was definitely going to, and I forgot to bring that up. And honestly, that's not all true because my other honorable mention was going to be Trevor Ariza, who was my pick 2 weeks ago, which is why I didn't go with him. But I mean, Trevor's been playing really well. 19 points. The defense is there. There were other options, but I got to shout out my boy for stopping Deuce's father. You know, like nobody likes that guy.
You're really going to bring little Deuce into this?
I don't have a problem with him. I have a problem with ESPN, right? So I blame ESPN for constantly putting him on the screen.
So now it's become his fault.
Okay. Well, now you're making me feel bad. So,
as I usually do, to transition into my player of the week, I have to go with my Slovenian king, Goran, because listen, everyone was counting Goran out this whole season, and has he struggled? Absolutely. He's missed a ton of games, which is to be somewhat expected at his age with a shortened off season. However, I would like to point out the fact that Goran has had a great last few games. I think he had somewhere around 23 against the Timberwolves, 19 against the Mavs. He did only have 9 points against the Celtics. However, he still had 7 assists. So he was finding a way to help regardless of if his shots were falling. And I need to say this, and I don't know if you are aware of this, Michael. Goran dropped some sick hats this week, and your girl has one coming on the way.
oh, you already copped the hat?
I did cop a hat.
Why is it that when you said cop a hat, it sounded so like I definitely didn't say it totally right, but you saying I did cop a hat just sounded so like vanilla.
It sounds like you're salty about the fact that I have a Goran Dragic hat coming my way. I got it in black, of course. Also, I would like to just take a moment and ask you if you saw the video of him handing out his hats and how excited Kendrick Nunn was over receiving one. He literally looked like a little kid on Christmas morning.
I did not see the video. I haven't even actually seen the hats. You'd think, no. You'd think a co-host who is so excited about this kind of thing and expects to bring it up on the next episode would at least send a picture or something like that. But no. And did you get me a hat? I'm just
crickets.
Wow. You know what? I will say Goran has played well and his turnovers are down, which I think is something you didn't expect for him to have a problem with, but he did for a while there. So it's nice to see that. My culture player of the week is going to be the dead god, right? Dewayne Dedmon.
Is that what we're going with?
That's what I'm going with for right now. I'll probably change it when somebody else comes up with a better one.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm going with Dedmon, not because his statistics never jumped off the page. He scored 6 points and had 6 rebounds against the Mavericks. He had 2 points and 4 rebounds against the Timberwolves. And then he had 6 points, 5 rebounds against the Celtics. That is not what he's going to do. Every once in a while, he's going to get a double-double for this team. He's going to get that 12 and 10. He's going to get a couple blocks in there. The reason why Dewayne Dedmon excites me so much is because he goes in there, he plays his at most 15 minutes, or at least that's what it was the last few games. He boxes out, he plays tough for rebounds, and he knows how to play with the ball on the interior. He knows what to do with it, which is something that was lacking from this team from every other big outside of Bam. And I love Bam Adebayo, but even he had his moments this season where he'd get the ball inside and it was a little bit of a toss-up with what he was going to do with it. So it's nice to see this team playing so well with Dewayne Dedmon, who is, again, not blowing it up statistically, but you know exactly the effort he's going to put forth. And if that isn't culture, I literally don't know what is.
Well, and also to piggyback off that, imagine if we didn't have him coming in. Who is going to fill that void? Precious? I don't think that we would have closed out the season the way that we were supposed to. And listen, Michael's making a face at me. I'm not throwing Precious under the bus. I genuinely think that this was not the greatest time for him to be excelling without a normal offseason, without maybe some development in the G League, even without the Summer League. I think that it hurt him, and I don't necessarily think that we should be expecting much more, but at the same time, we needed someone else to come in, you know, when Bam was resting, or to your point, to kind of complement Bam on stuff that he necessarily wasn't excelling at either. So I think for that reason alone, Dedmon has been a huge asset.
No, and on the Precious stuff, I agree with you. I think he came in at a rough time. I mean, he came into a team that was just in the finals, and there's something about coming in as a rookie on a team that just came off the finals with two rookies who had just performed incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
The expectations are going to be a bit skewed, and it was unfair to him. I think he can develop into something. I just don't know if that something is worth waiting on for this team. But the other big I found interesting when it came to Dedmon is, I mean, Bielitsa is not going to see the floor. I don't think ever at
I'll
this
be
point.
honest, sometimes I forget he's on the team.
No, I mean, I would too if it wasn't for, Gad and Ariel always bringing up the Bielitsa Miami Grill comparisons and everything, right? Shout out to Miami Grill.
It was his birthday the other day, and he tweeted it out, which is probably the only reason I remembered he was on our squad. So
I just want to do a quick shout out to Miami Grill in case they wanted to sponsor us. Hey, you could just reach out. I love the food. It's delicious. But with Bielitsa, I think they brought him in to fill in that KO role. And then they were just like, nope, Trevor Ariza's doing it just fine, which I don't think any of us could have anticipated. I mean, the dude's
and
well.
I think too, not only kind of what he's doing X's and O's wise, but it seems like he developed chemistry with the guys very, very quickly, and that's something you can't teach.
To a certain extent, and I know you're a big fan of his. I thought he was a great fit for the team. Him parting ways is what it is. Trevor's play lately is kind of making me go, Jay who?
I will not allow such slander.
How is that slander, though? It's not like it. I think Jay Crowder was a great addition to this team. Jay Crowder could do some things that Trevor Ariza can't, but Trevor's been playing so well. For a season where everyone was talking about, oh, if they had gotten Jay Crowder, oh, if Jay this. Trevor Ariza's filling that role and then some, in my opinion.
He is, and I think that, it would be silly at this point for anyone to argue that it was a bad thing to acquire him. With that said, do I still think that letting Jay go was one of the biggest mistakes we've made over the recent years? Yes.
Biggest mistake we've made over the recent years.
Correct. Yeah, I stand by that.
You're putting it up there with a Hassan contract?
Well, that and Dion, but...
Oh, what about matching Tyler Johnson's?
That was going to be the next one I said.
Yeah, there was a decent amount of things that we could bring up, I feel like.
But that was more contractual, which matters. But to me, not kind of... I don't even, and listen, I don't have any background on this, but I feel like we didn't try hard enough with him to try to negotiate. I know he wanted, I think it was 3 years. We could have at least, pumped him up for a year. I don't know what happened there. I just feel like that was a huge loss on our part.
I will say this, though, the way this season went, the point we are at right now, I think maybe Jay gets you one more win. And that's not an indictment on Jay. It's more a commentary on how nutty this season has been.
That's fair.
He's a very good player, but with Jimmy having missed so much time, and then Bam missed a little bit of time, Goran missed some times, the play from these guys was so erratic.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you had gotten the very best out of Jay Crowder every single night, I am just not sure it makes that big a difference. So that's why, at least for me, Jay was great, but the way everybody was clamoring for, whoa, if Jay Crowder was here, it'd be totally different. And nah.
The butterfly effect does exist, though. Who knows what would have happened if we got Jay? Jimmy might not have gotten COVID. The rest of the team might not have gotten the
Washington
injuries.
Wizards would have been like, nah, we're not going to shake hands with you guys.
I'm just saying,
Jay Crowder.
One thing changes the way of the universe, Michael. I'm a firm believer.
True. Maybe everybody would have been making their threes early on if Jay was here.
There you go.
Wow. That's a bit of a stretch there. But we go from that bit of a stretch to another stretch. So apparently a lot of people are talking about what kind of, and you wrote this down. I want you to explain. Is it like ideal matchups eventually? Because these are seeds that we're probably not going to play right away in the playoffs between the Nets, 76ers, and Bucks. So
yeah, I think a lot of people right now, for lack of talking about anything else currently, there's been a lot of just talk about who we'd rather face in kind of an ideal situation, whether that be the Nets, 76ers, or Bucks. And I'm just curious to kind of hear your thoughts there, because some of the takes I've seen have been a little mind-blowing.
And this is the one I think we have to address first before we even look at. So I think the 76ers are locked in as the one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that changing. It's really the Nets and the Bucks, right? They're one game apart. Brooklyn's in second, Milwaukee's in third. Here's the question I'll ask you, and we can get to that exact one. And I think this one's going to fire up, and I know your answer already. But I have seen some conversation on well, if you want to avoid X team in the first round, would it be better to drop back and get into the play-in? I, who am a fan of the play-in, think that's absolutely ridiculous, but we'll let you sound off on it, Allana.
That is one of the dumbest takes that I've ever heard. And I didn't see that one, but if Heat Twitter is the one coming up with that, I have a bigger problem with Heat Twitter than I have had already this season. So I'm going to need to do some investigating. That is a crazy, crazy concept. First of all, I do not believe in trying to control your own destiny when there are so many other factors at play. But to want to be in the play-in when you've been nothing but inconsistent this season, that's crazy to me. There is no way that I feel confident enough that we would survive the play-in.
And I think it was more so not so much wanting to be in the play-in. It was trying to avoid, and if I remember correctly, this person was talking about avoiding the Nets, a fear of the Nets and how that offense is too potent. I do think
Michael's
the Nets are
being
still a
nice
scary
and not
team.
name dropping in here because he knows I'll go after whoever this was.
No, I literally don't remember. I would love to say I remember. There's just a lot of people on Heat Twitter that get really active after wins, and so it just kind of gets a bit crazy for me. So I literally don't know who said it. But we both agree.
Don't worry.
The Nets don't scare you enough to want to be in the play-in, is what you're saying.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So then, I mean, the first round matchup is going to be either between the Nets or the Bucks, barring the Heat jumping into the 5th seed or the 4th seed. I think technically that one might even be possible. But the Hawks have a fairly easy schedule. The Knicks, who are the bane of my life, my existence, and they give me heart problems all the time, are playing really good defense. I'm going to go throw up now. It looks like it's between those two. Do you have a
Ricky, did you hear that? Ricky, calling Ricky.
Well, the Knicks. I hate the Knicks. I can't. Stupid team. They were better when Whoopi Goldberg was their coach. So Nets or Bucks, do you have a preference between the two that you would rather face in the first round?
Rather play the Bucks. And I know people are saying it's not the same Bucks as it was before, and I will agree with that. However, two things. First off, the Bucks, when it comes playoff time, not the same team as the regular season Bucks. And on the second part of that, we just match up to them really well. I don't know what it is. I just think that whenever we go up against them, we turn into the best versions of ourselves, and we kind of have their number. So I'm going Bucks here.
I will play devil's advocate, even though I agree with you. James Harden isn't assured to be back by the playoffs, is he? I think he has mentioned that he'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without James Harden, there is a bit of an advantage there. I think the Nets are still a good team. They still have two superstars who are very good. They've got a core around them that's actually playing better than a lot of people anticipated. The one thing with the Bucks that would worry me a little bit is defensively. I'm not sure what the Heat could do to Jrue Holiday without Victor Oladipo. That would be my question. Who are you matching up where? Because Bam is going to have to defend. I think he's probably going to be on Brook Lopez, not because that's an ideal matchup for him, but one, you don't want to tire him out. Two, last year they put everybody else on Giannis.
Yeah.
Just to kind of figure it out. Giannis would have to be defended by, I'm assuming, Trevor. Jimmy at that point would be on Middleton because he makes mid-range jumpers like his life depended on it.
That leaves your boy Duncan. You don't have faith
on Jrue Holiday? Listen, he had a couple good moments against Jason Tatum that deserved to be applauded, but a series against Jrue?
I had to throw that one out there.
Nah. So, like, without Depot, do you have any faith in this team stopping their guards defensively? Because I really don't.
It's going to take work. And I think that is a definite valid concern. I just, for some reason, feel like the Bucks collapse a little bit when it comes playoff time and we heighten against them. So yeah, on paper, I don't really know what the answer to that would be. But then again, on paper, I don't feel like the Nets are great either. I mean, we should be terrified of them. And still, from the majority of people I speak to, that doesn't really seem to be the case.
I think the Nets are like the anti-Bucks from the standpoint of what you're seeing on the court right now, where the Nets are, they kind of check in and out here or there, and they know when it comes playoff times, that's when they really need to show up. And the Bucks are just kind of a go all the time, but they're inconsistent because they're just not as good, to be completely honest. So I'd be interested to see what happens.
The thing about the Nets, though, is we don't know what this squad looks like in the playoffs.
Yeah, but they're going to figure it out. I mean, there's no way those three superstars. You really think that Kyrie, KD, and Harden are going to be like, oh, our chemistry's so thrown off. It looks like we got bounced in 6.
No, but I think that Nash is going to have some things to figure out on his hands, considering how many lineups he's had to kind of juggle throughout the season.
I've never been a believer of Nash as their coach. I think their coach is Mike D'Antoni, and Nash is the guy who stands up for the whole game.
Well, Nash is going to have to, on paper, figure out some lineups then.
And I don't have a problem with Steve Nash. I mean, really, it's all D'Antoni. It has to be D'Antoni who's making all these decisions, or at least weighs heavily on what's happening.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone would dispute that.
That team is going to be good in the playoffs. I'm not necessarily afraid of them, but of those top 3 seeds, they're the ones I want to face the least. And I guess we can talk about the 76ers a little bit. It's not that I don't think the 76ers are a good team. It's just a bunch of other things. Number one, they're coached by Doc Rivers. Everybody knows how he does in the playoffs. Secondly, Ben Simmons, I think, is an incredibly overrated player. You know, he should probably go date another Jenner or something, figure out his life. Maybe he can become a YouTube star.
Let's not do this.
Let's not do what?
I can't get behind the narrative of women ruining these basketball players. It's the same thing with Katya.
Whoa, hold up. I'm not saying that she ruined Ben Simmons. I'm saying he should focus on that because I think he'll have much more success in that.
Do you know who Kendall Jenner is currently with?
No.
D-Book, and look at the season he's having.
I'm not saying that Ben Simmons played poorly because of her. I'm saying he should go focus on that because she left his life and now he's like, I'm defensive player of the year. Dude, slow down. Go pay attention to other things, right? This isn't it, bro. Relax. I never said he played bad because of her. He really got sent by this.
Defend this to the death.
No, I agree with you. The way people make fun or the way people poke at every time Tyler has anything going on, it's like, oh, let's blame Katya. It's like, well, he could have also just played bad. Maybe. I don't know. But you're really upset about this. I feel like there's a list you have of all these like players that people have said, oh, it's the girlfriend. Oh, it's the wife.
Absolutely.
Hit me. What is this list?
No, I mean, I think that all the arguments get shut down by the fact that Devin Booker is having the season he's having, and he is with Kendall Jenner.
Oh, to me, the arguments get shut down by, I don't think that really affects their play on the court very much. And if it does, it's
that's a crazy concept to begin with. But I'm saying if anyone is really pushing that narrative, now I've given you some ammo in case you find yourself in a situation.
Are you talking about me or is this a hypothetical about the players?
I'm saying if you are speaking to someone else who's making this narrative, you can just tell them, what about Devin Booker, and then shut them up. So I've handed you a gift.
Yeah,
get out of jail card.
Take that, losers who think women are the problem in the NBA. Devin Booker's doing great. Shut your mouth.
There you go.
What were we talking about? We were talking about the 76ers.
76ers.
I'm not afraid of the 76ers. That's the long story short. Who cares about the reasons anymore? You took me way off the rails. Are you afraid of the 76ers?
No, I think that Here's the thing. I feel like no take is safe this season, and I'm not saying that to hide behind anything. Honestly, I don't have a read on any team. This season has been the wackiest probably that I can remember, at least in recent years. But I will say, I think the 76ers, to your point, Doc Rivers may do something better this year because it is a weird year, but history doesn't indicate that. On top of it, and I'm not trying to jinx anyone, Joel Embiid does not have a great record of staying healthy. In fact, actually, a lot of the 76ers don't. So I feel like one injury, or not even an injury, but one rested game, let's just say, and everything changes. So out of all the teams, I would rather face the Bucks, but I think we could match up against anyone.
if I could throw up some like boxer music in here, right? Some like ding ding and like put the let's get ready to rumble. Like this is the perfect time to do it right before this next conversation. You type this out and I'm going to read it word for word. If we make a deep enough run, does it forgive the rest of the season? Ladies first.
Absolutely not.
Was that it? I can go?
That was it.
That makes no sense at all to me. How could it not? If this team, with everything that went on, reaches the Eastern Conference Finals, which I will stake my flag in it right now, if Depot comes back, I think it can happen. That's not me just like messing around. That's not me hope trafficking. I think they get the right
sources,
matchups.
Y'all.
Sources. I got sources. Listen, the last source I had told me that Mo Harkless got traded because you asked the organization to trade him away, right? That's all I got.
He's killing it in Sacktown. Shout out Mo.
Don't call it Sacktown. That's weird. Do people actually call it that?
Absolutely.
Oh, how unfortunate. I mean, it's Sacramento. Nobody really likes it there. I genuinely think they can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not going to say they will, but I think they can. Genuinely. I think if they do that, I don't care at all what happened this past regular season. All is forgiven for me.
Here's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I have a bad feeling that if that were the case, the organization and fans, but I don't much care about what fans have to say anymore, will look at this team and say, look, there's not a whole lot of adjustments we need to make. Yeah, it was a shaky season, but look what we did. Let's bring them all back. Is that really what you want? Because that is what's going to happen.
No. And I think you and I both know that Pat Riley will be smarter than that. This team had just come off of the finals, and he was still talking about the trades that were being discussed. They didn't get executed. People can argue that all day and night about why they didn't and whatnot. That was a different story, right? You had some players on the line that had some good futures, all this stuff, yada, yada, whatever it is. I don't think there's going to be anything this team can do. Even, and I really don't think this is going to happen, even if this team wins the finals, Pat Riley is still going to try to get another whale down here. Now, if it's because Tyler goes off in the playoffs and Kendrick plays amazing and Depot is the player that I think he is with his jersey on my back, you know, right? He may feel a little bit differently about who he's willing to give up. But he's still going to look to improve this team.
Exactly the point I'm trying to make.
No.
Listen, I'm not saying that this team is going to be constructed in the exact same way, and I'm not saying that he wouldn't want to make a deal here and there or, you know, dip his toe in the water. But do I firmly believe that if we make it far enough, there's going to be a change in perspective and there's going to be excuses made for why the season wasn't working up until now? Absolutely. And I think that hurts the future of the team. So no, I don't think all is forgiven.
So then I think what we're discussing here is you and I have different perspectives on forgiven. To me, forgiven is forgiving what happened. Not saying if they make the Eastern Conference Finals, bring them all back. I'm more saying I don't care what games they lost. I don't care how rough it got. Don't care about the Timberwolves, whatever infighting was happening, the horrible droughts by certain players. If this team makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals, none of that matters to me. And I will not hold any of that against them. If they lose in the second round.
None of that matters, but I don't think, and I'm not holding anything against this team because honestly, this entire season, I have not seen a single guy who wasn't trying. I have not seen a single guy give up. I haven't seen a single guy just not put in the work. It's all been happenstance and COVID and a shortened season and just normal sophomore slumps, and I can go on and on. There is not one guy, honestly, that I can say just wasn't doing enough. Do I think that there were certain games where we really want to go down this path, Bam wasn't aggressive enough? Sure. Do I think Spo is to blame for some of the rotational problems? Yup. Obviously, guys like Precious weren't necessarily contributing as much, but I don't think there's anything to actually blame. I think my point is more so I don't want to just forget what happened this season and use the playoffs as the only thing that we're looking at moving forward to make decisions on the future.
That's a tough one. And I see what you're saying. And I don't want to bring this team back exactly as constructed, barring they win the finals. I will give them that. I will give them that. They win the finals, which I don't think they will. Everyone's going to be like, oh, Michael thinks they're going to win the finals. I don't think that's going to happen. But if they do, I'd give this team another shot. I mean, they did it.
You heard it here first, folks.
And
Michael
here's all I will
give this
say.
Team another shot.
If they make it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, there has to be something about the way this team is currently constructed that when it comes playoff time, they get it together and they figure it out and they get to where they need to be. Like, you're big on chemistry. You're big.
Another season of this. Just
if I have to sit through that season to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm okay with it.
I cannot relate.
Now, okay, but then what you're telling me then is trade away certain assets, bring in the superstar. This team is immediately going to be elevated from that certain point up to the next level. And that's where I'm saying the only next level after Eastern Conference Finals is finals. So that's going to have to be a really good move, a really big acquisition. And if it's there, take it. But I don't know if they'll be there.
And I've never necessarily been someone who just wants that big whale and thinks that the only way to move forward is kind of with that big move. But I do think that there are certain reoccurring, besides the inconsistency kind of issues that can be solved or that should at least be looked into regardless of what we look like in the postseason. And at the end of the day, a lot of the postseason, and I know people are going to fight me on this, it like has something to do with how you're playing in the regular season. You can't just bank on the fact that if you get it together in the last few games or you make that playoff push and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
I will never agree with this take.
We will never agree on this take. And I think this is such a fun little appetizer for this upcoming offseason in terms of whatever the hell is going to happen with this team. We still have the entire playoffs to go through, but we are going to fight on some of these names. One of those names, and I'll drop the little Easter egg right now, and we'll talk about it probably in a month or two. Kawhi Leonard.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that just by the sparkle in your eye. Michael gets this look, and when he's about to hit me with something I'm not going to like.
If he calls and goes, hey, Pat, I'm down to go down there. You just got to give me one rest game every 15 games. 100% I'm in. 100%.
I'm not even trying to say that I'm not in. I just feel like that is such a far-fetched thing to even be talking about. Can you see Kawhi Leonard wanting to join the Miami Heat?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. That's a no.
Maybe. I'll leave it there, and then I'll keep this clip so that in some months or years, if he does sign down here, I'm going to tell everybody, I said it. May 10th, 2021. I called it. Granted, there's a bunch of people that did it on Twitter way before me. But there's a little off-court happening that you wanted to bring up. Something about, you said something, the eyes have spoken. That's all you texted me about. I don't really know what's going on.
Michael loves just lying. I should start calling you Pinocchio over here. Michael always wants a nickname from me because I just call him Mr. Michael, and I think I found one. Pinocchio for the win. How are we feeling about that?
So you went with all of the characters in history that have lied, and you went straight to Pinocchio.
All of the characters in history. That's the most famous one, known for lying.
No, I know, but it's just so weird. You're just on top of my head, Pinocchio. That's your new name.
That is. But
cool.
I digress. Our good friend Tyler Herro, and I don't know, did you see this tweet, Michael, or did I bring this to your attention?
I saw it. I ignored it.
I liked it because, as I do, Tyler tweeted earlier, I believe it was last week. I think it was on the 3rd. It's not my fault if I don't meet ya likeness. Thoughts, comments, concerns?
I mean, it makes sense what he's saying. You've been screaming about this for a couple weeks now. I agree with you on it. I think a lot of what's going on with people and Tyler is the expectations they had for him. I think that's also tied into what they saw last year. I mean, it's very rare that players blow up like that in the playoffs. He did. You expected a step up from that. And I'm not ready to say that this season was a step up for Tyler. Statistically, he may have moved forward in certain areas, but it just doesn't really feel like a step up. But was I also coming into this season thinking Tyler Herro is the best of all time and he's going to be it and he's that third superstar behind those guys, no questions asked? No. And if I was, I got off that train pretty early. So he's struggled. It is what it is. He's very young. He has a ways to improve. I understand his tweet. I just also didn't like it because I don't think it matters.
I think it matters. I think it's good for him to speak up. I've been very vocal about this, as you have just shared. I think that a lot of the disappointment coming from the season in terms of Tyler is just people's expectations. He has not had a good season by any means. He was injured, however, and I'm starting to think that the injury was around before we really knew about it, because the way he's moving, and I'm not saying that he's all of a sudden having great games, he's moving a lot better. I think his energy is up, and I don't think that we really understood the extent of his injury, especially because, as we know, the Heat like to keep that pretty sealed in terms of kind of giving away too much about their players and what they're going through. And listen, I don't think that using anything about what happened last season, and not just with the Heat, but across the league, is really a good sample size for what a real season is like. The bubble was a completely exceptional situation, and the environment was really different. It just so happened that the Heat thrived in it. But to use Tyler's performance in the bubble as an example for what's next, and then when he doesn't necessarily live up to that, to then write him off completely in his second year in the league, to me, it's just doing the most, and I'm glad Tyler spoke up.
So then I guess we have to ask this question. He's been the source of controversy for a long time now. What do you think bubble Tyler was? Was that real Tyler who eventually will come back? Or was that bubble Tyler and we'll probably never see him like that again?
I think the true Tyler is closer to bubble Tyler. I don't know if I'm willing to say that that is it. I think that, if we're being frank, there were a lot less distractions there. I mean, there weren't endorsements to worry about. There wasn't traveling. There wasn't even, the same worry level about COVID because they were all just there. And I do think that being around Jimmy Butler 24/7 in the way that he was probably had a great effect on him. So do I think that that's going to be replicated exactly moving forward for him? No, I don't think that it's realistic to say that, but I do think his ceiling is closer to what we saw there than what he is now.
And so then here's another one I got to ask then. Tyler was playing about 32 minutes per game the first two series. Then he was playing about 35 minutes per game the two series after that. Since he's been back, he played 29 minutes against the Timberwolves, where he scored 27 points. Then he played 17 minutes against the Celtics, where he jacked up a couple threes that were questionable, to say the least. Where would you feel most comfortable putting Tyler once the Heat do get back into the playoffs?
In terms of minutes played, or in terms of
in terms of minutes played, like in a game?
I would ease him back in. I don't think that we have had him back for long enough to give him those full minutes. I also am not sure if at this point I would necessarily rely on him to be the closer that he had been in the past. I think it's an option. If he's having a good game, why not kind of reward him? And for example, if none happens to be struggling, in the third or the beginning of the fourth, then maybe slot Tyler in, but he would not be my first option right now.
I don't think he should be the first option either. I think you and I are both fans of his. We're defending him a lot more than a lot of other people were doing. But I think we agree. I mean, Nunn's just been playing better. Goran is coming back to a certain extent too. If Tyler's playing well, fine, keep him in there. He starts shooting some of those threes that you're not really comfortable with, sit him down. You have options, which is something I think this team had been lacking for a good amount of time there. We had another section ready to go, but we ran a little bit long. And if I'm not mistaken, we're actually pretty perfectly lined up to have a great playoff preview because we record Monday nights. The Heat season ends next Sunday. My thoughts are, let's just make that next episode all playoffs. If you're listening to this, get ready because it's going to be an absolute riot. We have thoughts already, and we'll have more time to cultivate them. So before we go, Allana, question. They have 4 games left. Boston, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Detroit. I don't need to know the record over those last 4 games. What seed do you think the Miami Heat will end up with going into the 2021 NBA playoffs?
I'm going to go with 6th. Not necessarily so much because of only us, but just I'm trying to kind of give us some leeway depending on what other teams do, which I would be perfectly fine with. Honestly, as long as we miss that play-in, I'm good.
So as long as they miss the play-in, you are good. I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm not super sure this team is going to end up higher than 6th, but you know what? I'm going to put this out there in the universe and I'm going to hope it comes true. And I don't care who it pisses off. Sorry, Ricky. I think the Knicks may have a bad couple of games. I mean, they've got a desperate Los Angeles team tomorrow night. Then they face San Antonio, who can put up a challenge, although they haven't been very good. Then they have Charlotte, who is still fighting for their playoff lives, right? They're fighting for some of that seeding. And then they close out against Boston, who, again, is going to be trying to play hard. And although they're missing Jaylen Brown, I think can put up a good fight. I don't know what it's like for tiebreakers and all of that. The Heat do not have an easy schedule. But I'm going to go out on a limb now and say the Heat are going to win tomorrow night against the Celtics. And they're going to end up in the 5th seed, same place they were last year, right before they made it to the NBA Finals. Look at me all hopeful.
I like this manifestation, Michael. We're learning something new.
And what are we learning?
To manifest.
I just kind of, is that what putting it out there in the universe is?
Mm-hmm.
Look at us. We did it. Way to go. Allana, take us out.
I don't have a closing.
Then
I intro, you outro.
Oh, you intro, I outro? Okay. Well, here's the outro, guys. Enjoy our new outro song.
Thanks for listening to Feel the Heat. Can't get enough of your hosts? Follow Allana at Allana Tachauer, Tachauer, and Michael at Michael, 5 RSN on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe.